Ahoy hoy gang, if this is your first time with us, welcome, and if you're joining us from a previous video, hey, we love to see it, and I hope you're doing well. Alright, so you saw the first part, or you sat down and you watched the Perfect Origin anime, and you're like, gee, I wonder what happens next. Terry, man, looks like he's in for some trouble. And now you want to go ahead and skip all that waiting for the Anime Weekly nonsense so you can spoil things for your friends. And that's why anyone reads anything, so don't worry, fam. I got you. I've gone ahead and broken this into 3 parts since it probably works best that way, so if you just want to skip to the end so you know what's going on, you know where to go. And if you want to skip over my rambling about how great the series is, I'll see you all at the start of part 1. Okay, so now that all the losers are gone, I gotta say the Perfect Chojin Origin arc is honestly one of the best shonen arcs of all time and really just something fascinating to behold. The series arguably conclusively concluded in 1987. Suguru beat Super Phoenix, got married, became king, and really anything that needed to be resolved was. Then you had the sequel series that started in 95, which I know I said 03 in the last video and that's on me, but Ultimate Muscle, or Kinnikuman Nisei, just kinda floated around and then faded into obscurity. So here are 2 creators coming back to the series that inspired generations after being almost 20 years away. It's 2011. Bleach, Naruto, and One Piece are at some of the highest reader levels of all time. Dragon Ball Z is a household name partially responsible for anime's booming popularity in the West. Yu Yu Hakusho is lauded as one of the greatest series of all time, and here comes the OG getting right back in the ring. How do you recapture that magic? How do you compete with these other series that were inspired by you? You don't. You polish and build off of what you have and make it something truly spectacular that becomes an antithesis of the idea that Kinnikuman is just some dumb wrestling series. The Perfect Chojin Origin arc is unique, oddly mature, and showcases that Yude Tamago's skills didn't rust over 20 years, they were polished to a masterful point. This is Kinnikuman at its absolute strongest. This is the story of what I can only hope is one of the best anime of the year. This is what you can look forward to. So let's begin with the Perfect Chojin Origin! I had to say it that way to make it rhyme, but I know it's Chojin, but Chojin Origin doesn't really rhyme. Alright, so Kinnikuman 2011 was actually brought back as a webcomic for Shuplay News' website, which is honestly genius. It cuts costs and lets it appeal to the niche fans that would want to come back and check this series out. And one of the best things this revival ever did was they set the series in the 80s. They didn't try to freshen it up, they didn't try and modernize any of it, they stuck to what works. Kinnikuman is the king of Planet Kinniku now, and so while he's gone, Terry Man steps in as the representative for the Justice Chojin in signing a giant peace treaty. He represents the Justice Chojin, Ashura Man represents the Devil Chojin, and of course, Neptune Man represents the Perfect Chojin. We then skip forward to a kid's day where all the Chojin are playing around with the little tykes and encouraging them all to fight for their own justice, when all of a sudden we see a menace coming from the sky. Big the Budo rains down from the sky with a whole new squad of terrors. They take out Canada Man and Special Man, turn Tile Man, Benki Man, and Curry Cook back into humans, and just show that they are a menace that's worth dealing with. Turns out Big the Budo isn't Big the Budo, but is actually Strong the Budo, the true Budo, which is absolutely his real identity. Joining him are the true Perfect Chojin menace, the true forces of the cosmos, the Perfect Chojin large numbers. This squad consists of Max Radial, Turbo Man, Crush Man, Marlin Man, weird but okay, Dalmanitan, hate that, hate all of that, and Peekaboo! Now I don't mean to get conspiratorial or nothing, but I'm pretty sure Senor Pink is a reference to Peekaboo. I know, no way that's true. Not like Oda's a huge Kinnikuman fan or anything. Not like Senor Pink came out 2 years after Peekaboo. I don't know. If I had a nickel for every Jump series that had a man in a pink baby bonnet, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but odd it happened twice, you know? Anyway, with no one else available, Terry Man agrees to fight all 7 members of the large numbers, which I mean, 7 is a pretty big number. That's a lot of guys for just one Terry man, and they made sure he was getting no help from Geronimo. They did that poor guy dirty. Geronimo's hopping in to save the day, and he gets hole punched and tossed aside. Anyway, the first to feel the wrath of the bucking Bronco is the certified Tonka Tough Max Radial. Look, can we talk about the updated art though? I heard your valid criticisms, and I'm taking a much slower, less is more approach with the pages just so that everybody's eyes are better, which just gives us more time to appreciate this art. I mean, it's so crisp and digital. Don't get me wrong, there is a charm to the old style, but this is how you do Kinnikuman in the modern age. The fights are super polished, and because they're so beautiful, you can be way more graphic. And again, I'm not saying it's like vagabond levels of beauty needing to be put up in a museum or anything. It's just clean, it's sharp. They're not trying to replicate a style from 30 years ago. They're keeping the old designs, everyone has just some minor touch-ups to their models, but they don't get any new spikes or battle armor. They're same as you saw them last, and that's great. But as Terry Man fights Max Radial, he realizes he's fighting basically living tires and is getting absolutely shredded. Two very important things are happening here. We're seeing that the large numbers are more than capable, and that Neptune King was nothing compared to these guys. Neptune King said that he was their leader, but they say he was a phony. Neptune Man couldn't beat these guys, and he's been captured. And yet, here Terry Man is, getting up time and time again knowing he has no backup. Knowing he's got to do this on his own, and even as he does manage to blow out Max Radial's tires and finally gets a well-earned dub, he can't even stand anymore. And as he falls out of the ring, he's saved by the reigning king of Planet Muscle, the one, the only, Kinnikuman! Which, yeah, of course he would come to help his best buddy. He loves his planet and his people and his wife, but he's a man of the bros. Now this is when we get our first real glimpse of what the large numbers are like. We saw this way back when, during the tag team arc back in the original series, but it was really just because Screw and Kendama fought dirty. Max Radial, understanding his failure, is permanently put down with the help of Strong the Budo. The large numbers stating that if they're not perfect and undefeated, they'd rather die. Terry Man is understandably messed up by the revelation and doesn't know what to think. Why fight someone who fights every fight to the death? To know no matter what, you're going to be taking a life. It can be understandably unnerving, but Kinnikuman reassures him he'll find a way to make that not happen. He's so resolute about it too. Like, this is Suguru with all the growth of the last series, and honestly, it's incredible what we see this arc. And as Suguru flies off to fight Peekaboo, Terry Man is pushed aside by several cloaked threats going to square off against the perfect large numbers. And honestly, talk about redemption. Not only are the Devil Chojin back, they're ready to beat some sense into some perfect origin and bring that certified pain. The concept is so dumb in the best possible way. Do you care about how they were brought back? No, absolutely not. You're just glad they're there. You know they're working for a menacing force that looks all too familiar. And if they are, he's gotta show up. He's there. We see his back. Everyone, I'm so happy with where we're going. And so as the large numbers go to face off against the idle Chojin that are still in their medbase, they go around the world where they're intercepted by the Devil Chojin, and we have our fight card. So it's Decase King versus Turbo Man, Mr. Common versus Crush Man, Black Hole versus Dalmanitan, which needs to go exactly one way, Atlantis versus Marlin Man, because of course, and the Mountain versus probably the worst person imaginable for him to fight, Strong the Budo. Gee, I wonder who's gonna win. A giant foreboding presence that seems to have way deeper influence than we realize, or a rock in a gi? Decisions. That being said, the first match of Decase King vs. Turbo Man shows that these aren't your dad's Devil Chojin. No, they've gotten an upgrade. Decase King is using recordings of characters like Kinnikuman Zebra, Mammoth Man, and showing he didn't sit around doing nothing after he lost to Kinnikuman. They actually all feel really fleshed out now with actual motivations and a genuine camaraderie. Like Buffalo Man defected back to the Devil Chojin. Not because he got possessed or went evil or anything, they're just genuinely his crew, his boys. They have this little devil horde salute and they cheer for each other, and that's kind of the big difference compared to the Perfect Chojin. They're people outside of their desire to fight. The Perfect Chojin treat every match as their own trials. They don't have seconds. They're not fighting as a team. They're fighting to wipe everyone out. Kinnikuman 2011 does an amazing job of building the world and the story out from where it ended 20 years ago. These devils don't work for Satan anymore. They work for Akuma Shogun, for Goldman, which, oh man, we're gonna get into it, way more into it, but phenomenal. Anyway, Stacace King loses. Yeah, it turns out Turbo Man just absorbs energy and sends it right back. So he takes all this beating just to then overload Stacace King and take him down pretty swiftly, which, like, yeesh. Alright, you came to save the day and then immediately lose. Not great. That being said, at least it was Stacace King and not like Buffalo Man eating it round 1. Next up is Mr. Kamen versus Crush Man. Okay, here we go. He's gonna run it back, and he lost. Yeah, turns out Crush Man is mostly metal, so Mr. Kamen's straw just sucks a bunch of metal in his mouth, and then Crush Man, crushes him. These devils are looking less dependable and more disposable at this point. But that's alright, that's okay, we can recover. Next up is Black Hole versus Dalmatitan, or whatever his name is, I don't care. Look at him, he's an affront to God. It's a battle of the holes. It's basically what if Polka Dot Man was a furry versus a living black hole. It's an odd fight, all things considered. Though I didn't talk about this before, and I want to talk about it here, since why not? It's a black hole versus a Dalmatian. What could possibly happen? So remember how in the original series, kids would write into Jump with character ideas? Well, they show off who wrote in the newest characters, and those adorable little scamps that are sending in wrestlers are comfortably in their 30s and 40s back in 2011. I don't know, I just imagine some salaryman doodling a wrestler on his break all excited like he's 12 again, just to send in his wrestler idea to Kinnikuman and hopefully achieve a childhood dream. I don't know, that's not even me making fun of him. There's something genuinely wholesome about seeing such dedicated fans. Anyway, I will say Dalmatitan or Dalmatian does have a cool, manipulation of white and black and moving his spots, but also he's a dog man. I don't know. Tire guy, crushing hand thing, an evil pike battery, dog man. He just stands out like a sore thumb. Marlin Man makes more sense, and he's Marlin Man. Thankfully, Black Hole shows the devils aren't complete losers and handily bodies and takes out Dalmatitan after luring him through a dog bone-shaped escape hole in his ultimate technique, which, I don't know. Gotta give credit to Yude Tamago for managing to give a character with no face so much personality. I appreciate the Devil Chojin way more now, I will admit, than I ever did before. They needed these redemption fights, even if they lost, like Stacace King and Mr. Kamen. Though, this is the first win, and with it, Black Hole takes out Dalmatitan before he can take out his own existence. They're still Devil Chojin. They're still not good guys, even if you're fighting on the same team. And I know this is gonna sound odd, but this is absolutely my favorite fight of this part, and kinda in my top 5 of the entire arc. I genuinely love the Marlin Man versus Atlantis fight. It shouldn't work as well as it does. On the surface, it's just Fishman versus Fishman. But I don't know, Atlantis just kinda slaps. I appreciate that they're fighting on the Thames River in England after, Atlantis beat Robin Mask, England's greatest Chojin, and the crowd is understandably against him until he manages to keep fighting and eventually turns the audience. He fights with such tenacity against Marlin Man, and how does he win? How does he beat this other Fishman? He gets him into a tower bridge. Robin Mask's signature move. And with his last remaining breath, takes them both out. Okay, the last 2 fights have been pretty phenomenal, all things considered. I mean, a league better than most of the fights in the original series, and that's not a bash on the original series at all. They just have so much better flow now. They work. They're gripping and shows that Yude Tamago is not resting on their laurels. They've been working on series since Kinnikuman ended and have done even more wrestling. Even if Nisei has its problems, and it has its problems, which mostly boil down to Kevin Mask not being the main character, it's still a showcase of Yude Tamago honing their craft and how they want to show wrestling in a modern age. Huh. Eh, huh. Anyway, Kinnikuman fights a baby. A baby. Peek-a-boo. Yeah, as much as I love Marlin Man versus Atlantis, I hate this. I hate this equally. It's a scale. We'll get into that. Justice Man. It's just, there's a lot of fights that I can at least justify, and I know this is supposed to be a sign of something bigger, but I don't care. I hate it. Hate all of it. Peek-a-boo is a baby Chojin that can copy any move it sees and adapt immediately. He was kept intentionally underdeveloped so that he could have explosive growth, and the idea is fine, but he's the living embodiment of Peek-a-boo, and Suguru is spooked. It starts with Kinnikuman bullying a baby. You bring your character back after 20 years, and the first fight he has, he's making a grown man baby cry. And this is after he stood up for Terryman, after he saved Terryman from a very dark and perilous position. I'm not saying he can't have joke fights. I'm not saying he can't at all. It's just Peek-a-boo shows up throughout the rest of the series, and it just feels weird. Anyway, since Peek-a-boo is always adapting to his moves, Kinnikuman has to bust out an oldie but a goldie, the Furin Kazen he used to beat Jesse Malvia after he trained with Kamehame. Kinnikuman speaks to Peek-a-boo and implores him to save Neptune Man and not take his own life, that he can get stronger and he wants to have a rematch with him someday. Peek-a-boo decides to live and declares this, to which Strong the Budo just kinda snaps and starts turning the mountain into the gravel. But God love the mountain for wanting to be more memorable than a baby. He keeps charging Strong the Budo, and even as his face is blown away by karate chops and he's reduced to rubble, he tackles Strong with the last of his strength and takes him down with the suspended stadium into the canyon below. But not before Strong tells Buffalo Man he knows Akuma Shogun well. And as they all regroup after the fight, Strong the Budo MIA, 5 more of the Perfect Chojin fly in alongside Crush Man and Turbo Man to shake things up, including another member of the Kinniku clan? Dun dun dun! Yeah, realistically, this is where the first season of the anime is going to conclude, especially with the pacing they've done in the first 2 episodes. So if you don't want any more spoilers than this, if you just want to know what the first series is, it's going to be this. The second season will probably go into part 2, third season, part 3, and part 4, and then ultimately wrap with 50 episodes, I imagine. It's 200 chapters of an arc. It's healthy. But look at where we've started. Brilliant start here. Anyway, the rest will be continued in part 2. Alright, so these new big bads have appeared and they need to show off. They've been cloaked for too long. The other Kinniku clan fighter goes by the name Nemesis. He's joined by Polar Man, Grim Reaper, Jack Chi, or I just call him Faucet Man, and Marvelous, the Kempo Master. Gee, wonder who he's gonna fight. They decide that since Peek-a-boo isn't going to honor his part of being a perfect Chojin, they'll do it for him, and proceed to pass him back and forth, setting Nemesis up to unleash a perfected Muscle Spark? A technique only the royalty of Planet Kinniku know? Suspense? I'll say this, I'm glad they bullied Peek-a-boo. Sadly, he's saved by Kinnikuman getting under the Muscle Spark and taking the brunt of the attack. The new large numbers take Kinnikuman and Terryman out, and as they get ready to turn to face the Devil Chojin, good old Geronimo jumps up ready to help, ready for round 2, and good lord, the kid lasts 5 pages. Like the first time, yeah, okay, you need to show the Perfect Chojin are a real and proper threat. Geronimo fought against Team Super Phoenix. He's a real guy. Man shouted a tornado away. He's not a scrub. So, you beat him the first time, you set up that the large numbers are spooky. The second time, you just hate him at this point. Geronimo didn't need to be passed along like a free sub punch card. Yet there he is, just getting scalded and blasted into the next century, and when all hope and Geronimo's pride are lost, the stasis pods open and out walk the idle Chojin. Robin Mask, Robin Man, Broken Man Jr., and Warsman. The Perfect Chojin blast off to a pyramid, and yeah, it's just more fights What did you think was gonna happen? Anyway, we've got Brocken Jr. versus Crush Man, who took out Mr. Kamen. Ramen Man versus the Chojin Kempo Master Marvelous. Wow, no way. Black Hole versus Jack Chi, the weird faucet guy. Wars Man versus Polar Man. Robin Mask versus Nemesis. And rounding it out, the Spring Man and Buffalo Man tag team of Diabolos versus Turbo Man and Grim Reaper. Who I will say, Grim Reaper feels so out of place. I don't know, he just feels off. First up is Brocken Man Jr. versus Crush Man, and it really sets the theme of the fights. Friendship energy. It's a mysterious force that we've seen Suguru and friends use before, but what if it could be replicated? What if it was more than just a weird device that helps any hero win in a time of trouble? What if it was actually some mystical force? Brocken Man Jr. keeps attacking Crush Man, who just keeps wearing him down over and over, stopping his attacks and pushing him against a corner. I'm amazed they gave Brocken Man Jr. a proper fight and Geronimo got passed around, but sure enough, he awakens to the power of his friendship power and is able to turn the tide with a fiery Red Rain of Berlin. And because he failed, Crush Man crushes his own heart. I don't know, there's a lot more respect for Brocken Man Jr. now, and I appreciate the growth he's had since his fight with Ramen Man. I'll also say it's funny because to the reader, it's been 20 years. The chapters are weekly. This 200 chapter long arc takes place over the course of 3 days. And it's only been a year and a half since Suguru beat Super Phoenix. Time is it is fluid in the best way, and if that's not the most shonen time explanation ever, I frankly don't know what is. Next is Ramen Man versus Marvelous, which, I don't know, I have mixed feelings about this fight. So Marvelous is bashing Ramen Man for being an honorable warrior now instead of the brutal monster he used to be and starts overwhelming him. Ramen Man, like an absolute legend, tells Marvelous he's not worth going all out on. He hasn't earned having the brutal Chojin come back. Marvelous then proceeds to use his dragon heads and says that he always fights fair. How is using your dragon heads to bite Geronimo and throw him to one of your friends fair? I don't know. The fight is quick and senseless in a way. Ramen Man beats him, and it really just feels like it's a chance for Ramen Man to shine and show off that he's grown as an individual and not just as a Justice Choji. Again, Yude Tamago has gotten a lot better at expressive faces and, more importantly, expressive dialogue. Before, the dialogue was very, very basic. It was stealing friendship power or eating gyudon. Now it's weighing having a real purpose behind why you fight and the cruel torture of immortality. Yeah, Kinnikuman 2011 is a ride. The Black Hole versus Jack Chi fight is definitely an interesting one in comparison. Jack Chi uses his faucets and dowsing to find geysers and uses them to get rid of all the shadows in the ring. Without any shadows, Black Hole is left with no way to fight back and he starts getting desperate. Like, other than Peekaboo, I appreciate the large numbers. Jack Chi and one later on, that's right, still nowhere near done, have a design that feels the most like just a guy in a costume though. It's hard to explain, but even though his design oddly isn't for me, his character isn't bad at all. He pushes Black Hole to the absolute brink and he's left struggling, which, like, he's already had to fight a Dalmatian man, but he was actually able to keep going. And when Black Hole's at his limit, Spring Man and Buffalo Man cheer him on and he sucks everything around him into the strongest black hole he's ever made, and then does a cosmic tag out where Pentagon pops out of his head and fights Jack Chi for him. Remember, Pentagon isn't a Devil Chojin. He was part of the Justice Chojin Olympics, and he's Black Hole's perfect tag partner. Sure enough, he's able to take Jack Chi out, and when he takes himself out on a geyser, Spring Man's stage collides with Buffalo Man's, and it's the return of my favorite tag team. Yeah, it's Grim Reaper and Turbo Man versus good old Spring Man and Buffalo Man. Which I'll say, we did get some Spring Man versus Grim Reaper earlier on, and it's great, but this is the main bulk of the fight. We find out Spring Man and Decay's King were friends because everyone else just saw them as joke toy Chojin and they swore to be more than someone's punchline. He's tenacious and again super emotive, especially for a guy with no mouth. He wants to avenge his fallen friend. He wants to crush Turbo Man by any means necessary. So when given the opportunity, of course he teams up with his best bud to avenge their fallen friends. Spring Man gets eroded down, but they manage to take out Turbo Man, and that's phenomenal, but it used the last of his strength, and Spring Man is crumbled to dust. So as Buffalo Man and Grim Reaper square off, Buffalo Man is able to get him in a cross slam and take him out, really showing why he's one of the aces of the Devil Chojin squad. Like, he harnesses the devil power and shows why he was an absolute threat when he embraced that evil in his very core. It's not Satan puppeting him, that's just his unbridled rage. And when he beats Grim Reaper keeps goading him to take him out to show he's a true Devil Chojin, and sure enough, he stabs his horn through his chest and Grim Reaper disappears, where the rest of the Chojin have been left as corpses. Dun dun dun! But it's okay, the battle technician is here. He's gonna make a difference. He's up against Nemesis. He's basically fighting a mirror of his eternal rival. Robin Mask has this. It's a battle of the techniques as they go back and forth, but when Nemesis shows off his version of the muscle curtain and breaks Robin Mask's horn, he's forced to lose the armor and go all in. He hits Nemesis with his tower bridge, Nemesis is able to break out and hit him with a tombstone, and when Robin understands he's lost, he says goodbye to his friends and gets slammed with a battleship drop. With Robin Mask defeated, even after causing some damage to Nemesis and seemingly earning his respect, Nemesis proceeds to throw Robin Mask's body into a sand dune and he sinks away. Yeah, there goes Robin Mask. He's not coming back. And talk about a way to establish a true big bad. Like, why would Suguru really care about Strong the Budo? But Nemesis? Oh, he's earned those hands. He didn't just beat Robin Mask, he took him off the roster for good, and he is just brutal. I don't know, it's appreciated that there's some real stakes now. Super Phoenix did a lot of messed up stuff, don't get me wrong, but he never took that extra step, and I'll say it, Robin Mask is missed mighty. There goes one of my heroes. There goes my favorite. Imagine hearing your teacher has just been taken out and you have to focus on your own match. Sure enough, Warsman does not take the loss of his teacher well and goes all in on bodying Polar Man, Nemesis' number 2 and best friend. Warsman keeps fighting and eventually shows his smile, determined to take out Polar Man. His mask is ripped off and Warsman is largely unfazed since he's gotten used to it by now, which is genuinely great for his character, and with some motivation from the spirit of Robin Mask, he's able to get Polar Man into a Paolo special and finally clenches a victory with his own friendship power. Polar Man is determined to end his life, and when Warsman actually refuses to do it, Nemesis comes down, takes out his best friend, and yeets him into the same sand dune as Robin Mask. This was necessary for Nemesis' character. You need to show that he doesn't break his rules for anyone. He's brutally fair, and honestly, it makes him work. He becomes a standout antagonist that you never quite totally hate. He would also go on to explain that the perfect Chojin were started by a god who descended to train Chojin and show that they were worth saving from the gods. He picked 10 Chojin and gave them the blessing of immortality, turning them into his perfect orders, and the goal that all perfect Chojin strive for. The god in question being Strong the Budo, spoilers, and also the Chojin Enma. But I mean, you can't possibly think that Strong the Budo was gone, right? But when former King Mayumi tells Suguru something horrible has happened, and interestingly, Nemesis recognizes Mayumi, Mayumi reveals that the gold mask is gone and only the silver mask remains. That's right! Akuma Shogun is back, and with the rest of his Devil Knights in tow, he's ready to take the fight to the man and bring down Chojin Hell. Monte Saint Parfait, the pinnacle of any Chojin's journey. If you manage to make it to this legendary land, you will awaken your innate power and join the perfect ranks. Or so they say. Well, Akuma Shogun parts the sea and marches right in as his own army's vanguard, and starting the assault on the perfect Chojin origins. Here we're introduced to the perfect origin, Mirage Man, who recognizes Akuma Shogun and reveals that Akuma Shogun, aka Goldman, was a former perfect origin that worked for Strong the Budo, aka the Man, aka Chojin Enma, aka God, alongside his brother Silverman. Goldman and Silverman defected because they thought they could cultivate stronger Chojin from the inferior Chojin that the rest of the Order looked down on, with Silverman cultivating the Justice Chojin and Goldman creating the Devil Chojin, because they didn't believe in blindly following the man and wanted to chart their own course. They didn't believe there should be a power that stands above all without any challengers. That's actually a great motivation that's just better than, ooh, he's a super evil bad guy. He actually has a reason for why he's doing everything he's been doing. He's not following Satan's orders. This is his own fight. He fights and takes out his old friend Mirage Man, who really does not want to fight, and that's great. You never get a feeling that the Perfect Origins care about humans at all. It's small, but it's super important. They're not interested in ruling over humans specifically, they want to rule everything. They're not about infighting. But he collects Mirage Man's dumbbell and continues his hunt. With Mirage Man out, Akuma Shogun makes his way into the Chojin graveyard to hunt Chojin Emma, and starts turning the wheel Wars Man was pushing in the opposite direction, unraveling the whole thing. And as he's doing that, he's attacked by the next Origin, Abyss Man, who's so proud of how well guarded his back is. And gee, I wonder what could possibly happen this time. I'm not gonna keep you in suspense here, yeah. Good old Shogun beats Abyss Man with that good old Hell's Guillotine and talks about a great way you reintroduce a character. Akuma Shogun wasn't holding back against Kinnikuman and only lost because of friendship power, that burning inner strength. He's not some slouch, and knowing that he's that powerful adds even higher stakes to the orders that are viewed as his equals. Effectively, an entire league of Akuma Shogun class threats. And so, as he goes deeper into Chojin Hell, he comes across his next challenge, Pain Man, the Fifth Order. He decides that he's got a better opponent for Pain Man, and so he summons one of his knights, Junk Man! Woo! Mash Hands McGee is back, baby! Who's gonna win? Crushing hands or airbags? Only one way to find out. Again, it's much like Spring Man and Sakei's King. You really get to see that Junk Man is more than just a weird gray living slapchop. He's actually something of a battle tactician himself, even heating up his hands to take out Pain Man's airbags. This man is so dedicated to beating Pain Man, he rips his own arm off to keep fighting and ultimately crushes Pain Man with his own amputated masher. Good on Junk Man for getting a win. He honestly earned it, and seeing him revere Akuma Shogun instead of fearing him is honestly great. All the devils follow Akuma Shogun because they believe in him, and it really adds that extra layer to them as fighters. Next up is Sneagator versus the mighty one-eyed moose, Ganman. Ganman, I don't know. Sneagator is apparently like a harsh training coach to the other Devil Knights that believes in his students and is one of Akuma Shogun's most respected soldiers. We also see that slowly but surely, the fight with the Order is moving into the real world, and their conflict can't be hidden anymore. Goldman is pulling these hidden god warriors into the spotlight as he works to get all the dumbbells and wipe all the Order out, including himself, once and for all. Sneagator actually seems super tenacious and keeps fighting even when Ganman shows that he can see the future and really just sort of plays with him. It not only shows how strong Ganman is that he's able to just shred Sneagator, but it really hammers home how tight the Devil Chojin are together. Sure enough, Sneagator gets literally torn asunder, and Ganman, or Ganman, goes to join up with the rest of the Origins, where we cut to Spain, and Grim Reaper is floating over the Sagrada Familia, provoking Buffalo Man into a rematch. Turns out, Grim Reaper is actually Psycho Man, one of the Perfect Origins, and as Buffalo Man is getting ready to go and remind him where his grave is, Psycho Man is pulled into an intergalactic conflict as everyone's favorite living galaxy shows up. That's right, it's Planet Man versus Psycho Man. Look, I loved Planet Man when I first saw him, and deep down, I know he's a cool idea. But you think he's standing any kind of a chance against a character that keeps popping up and getting more and more dangerous? He's spitting bits of Saturn rings, he's teaching you space facts, he's putting the faces of all the perfect large numbers on his planets, and where Suguru struggled and hesitated because he didn't want to hit his friends, Psycho Man is popping their heads like bubble wrap. They are not the same. Oh, and Psycho Man discovered magnet power and is just a devoted soldier of the man who will happily go after any power to give himself a leg up. Which is why he handily beats down Planet Man, spears him through, and sends his head rolling over to Buffalo Man and Black Hole with a smile on his face because he's just that guy. I don't know, they definitely make Psycho Man a real and valid threat very quickly. We're gonna need someone to turn this around soon because otherwise these Origins are gonna steamroll the Knights. But Lady Liberty is about to be basking in some sunshine. Sure enough, Sunshine is fighting on the Statue of Liberty against the Concrete Crusader, Thingman, the tallest of the Orders, and it's honestly a really great fight. I hated Thingman's design initially, but my love of Sunshine balanced it out, and when you have two giant Chojin just smashing into each other, it's honestly delightful. Sunshine's never had this opportunity to really just be a big guy versus a big guy. He's always a part of something else, or he had to fight Geronimo. This is his chance to redeem himself, and he is always on the back foot. Sunshine is so desperate to get a win for Akuma Shogun, and I genuinely love his new 2011 look. It's just a polished version of his tag team form, but I really think it's the best look for him. It's a battle of sand versus concrete as they go back and forth, and sure enough, with an act of desperation and a little bit of trickery, Sunshine gets there. He beats Thingman something fierce and shows that they're not losers. They're devils. But no time to bask in the sun of victory, we gotta keep moving. Okay, so over at the Silver Castle, Silver Temple, whatever, we get the new Perfect Order member, Crow-Man! A man in a crow costume. Yeah, between him and Jack Shi, they feel weird. They stand out more than any of the other characters. Everyone else feels unique. It's just every time I look at Crow-Man, I'm like, that's a guy in a crow costume. Anyway, who do you think a man who uses feathers and looks like a ninja would be fighting? Did you guess ninja? Why wouldn't you? Are you okay? It's all right. We're almost done. So close. Only got like 10 more volumes. I will say a nice thing they do with Ninja and Brocken Man Jr. is they gave them growth from their time on Team Soldier Squad, even if they never actually got to show any of it off in a fight that meant anything way back when. It's smart, and honestly, that's what we keep seeing throughout this arc. They're not reinventing the wheel. They're wiping the wheel off and holding a magnifying glass up to the tire to show all the hidden details that make the series feel that much more fleshed out in a way that I can pad through this fight without you even realizing it. There's wings and feathers, and Buffalo Man and Brocken Man Jr. enlist Kinnikuman in the squad to sit like Team Soldier to motivate Ninja to get that win. Sure enough, Ninja manages to clench the win and walk away a winner with just one more Devil and Order left to square off. And even if I am critical on this fight, it's honestly one of Ninja's strongest and makes up for the blemish that is the Satan Cross fight. I don't know, especially with Kinnikuman Nisei, Ninja grew on me. Ninja is much, much better than I thought he was gonna be. Meanwhile, in Demon World, we see the Prince Ashura Man popping up to square off against the Ramen Man-shaped Harbinger of Justice that had Silver Man and Gold Man cut each other's heads off. The one, the only, Justice Man. It's Justice Man v Ashura Man to bring this Battle of the Dumbbells to a head. Justice Man is all about balance and making sure that he enacts proper justice. It's really just the Psycho Man Planet Man fight, but more obvious, I guess. Like, Justice Man is overwhelming Ashura Man at every turn and just ripping his arms off, breaking his faces, and showing that he's basically in the palm of his hand the entire time. I don't dislike Justice Man at all, but the fight is very obviously meant to just show him off for something later. Sure enough, Ashura Man isn't found guilty by the scales, but he is found guilty of having 0 arms and a broken body. Justice Man walks off after throwing Ashura Man his little armlet back and going to continue his little journey. With the final players starting to gather, Strong the Budo summons Yggdrasil, the World Tree, and it turns into a 5-tiered wrestling ring tower because of course it does. Akuma Shogun gets a seat opposite Strong, and we enter the endgame. It's Buffalo Man v Ganmon in a battle of the horns, Ramen Man versus Nemesis in a battle of the come on now. The series isn't called Ramen Man 2011. Brocken Man Jr. versus Psycho Man in the battle of Buddy Boy No! And finally, Terry Man v Justice Man in the SmackDown to end all patriotic SmackDowns. Kinnikuman gets to sit and watch his friends fight and not go and help. Honestly, I love the Buffalo Man Ganmon fight. Buffalo Man wanted to fight Psycho Man, and now here he is clashing horns with Ganmon, Ganman, whatever, and getting pushed to the absolute limit by a man that views him as a complete and utter joke. He isn't harnessing Satan's power, he's harnessing his power, and finding his own friendship demonic power to use to beat a man that doesn't even bother remembering the names of any inferior Chojin he beats. Buffalo Man is gonna make this overgrown moose remember a name today. I don't know, it's honestly like my third favorite fight of the whole arc. It's the pinnacle of Buffalo Man's arc, and it feels like it would have been a solid conclusion to the journey as a whole if the series was called Buffalo Man 2011. That's just how good it is. Sure enough, even backed into a corner, Buffalo Man is able to come out on top, put Ganmon down, and show that friendship power isn't just for Justice Chojin. And is Buffalo Man really a devil? Is him being a devil Chojin a clear designation that he's evil? I don't know, that's kind of the really cool thing about this final arc. None of these sides is like the evil side. They all have justification for what they're doing, and they're passionate about their versions of justice, but they're not trying to destroy the planet, just take away the power that lesser Chojin have that lets them upset the balance of the world and potentially pose a threat to the standard order. Because if that order breaks, everything falls apart. Anyway, Ramen Man fights Nemesis, and what do you think happens? You really think Ramen Man is gonna come in camel clutch? Haha, get it? Cause he did that thing before? Obviously he loses. But it's a great time to really talk about why Nemesis works. See, throughout his arc, we get to see Nemesis be humble with other perfect Chojin, and we learn his dark and hidden past. Nemesis is actually Kinnikuman's great uncle and the brother of the great Kinniku ruler Tatsunori, who even made the muscle curtain that Suguru would learn years later. Now this is where things actually get interesting. He could have just been this rogue Kinniku clan member that absolutely hates any member of the clan, but he doesn't. They're talking about the past, and he's talking about Tatsunori, and you expect the rug pull of, and he wasn't as good as you all think. He was actually a monster. But instead, you get him going, I love my brother, and he loved me. He was the only person that would come and visit me in my cell, and hated that I was in there in the first place. It shows that he understands the light of the world, and he even inspired Mayumi and Harabote when they were kids. Nemesis was just a fighting prodigy that mastered the muscle spark and became a threat to the Royal Council and their lineage and claim to the throne. He never had any intention on acting on any of it, but when push came to shove, he left and joined the Perfect Chojin after they recognized how his technique reminded them of Silverman. Nemesis doesn't represent any evil god trying to take the throne or has some bigger cosmic scheme. He has experienced the darkness of the Kinniku clan firsthand and thinks it's corrupted from the ground up. He lived through the corruption. He experienced it firsthand and saw that change needed to happen. Of course he loved his brother and thought he was an excellent ruler, but any ruler of planet Kinniku is a ruler of a broken empire. And Tatsunori would even be held hostage and try to be taken out by rogue council members, showing that the Kinniku clan is full of bad actors. The irony being that because of Nemesis' influence, Mayumi was a benevolent king, and Suguru, for all intents and purposes, doesn't suck. And everyone is effectively setting up the Nemesis and Suguru fight. They want to see them clash, and Kinnikuman is understandably terrified of fighting his great uncle. He thinks he'll be trounced, and while we'll get to it later, it's really kind of amazing what he's going through right now. Anyway, next up is Terry Man versus Justice Man, and this American patriot is going to show Justice Man that life is worth living, and you can't judge with broad strokes. It's really just a redo of the Ashura Man fight, except Terry Man is going all in right out the gate. He's using everything and just sort of winging it, while Justice Man coldly calculates his way to victory. We also discover that Terry Man got a new, even better artificial leg, but he fears that if it breaks, he may never be able to fight again. That's what makes the next part so fantastic. Justice Man breaks Terry Man, but he doesn't aim for his leg. He doesn't want him to have the excuse that if Justice Man didn't aim for his weak spot, he might have had a shot. He wanted to get that foolish notion out of his head as fast as possible. Talk about a true and proper beatdown. Justice Man is cold but fair, and when Terry Man is willing to risk his leg and is charging with broken arms, struggling to hold a candle to anything Justice Man has done, Justice Man surrenders and gives him his dumbbell, impressed by Terry Man's fighting spirit and defecting to find his own form of justice. I don't know, seeing the man strong the Budo, Chojin Enma, whatever, slipping more and more and realizing that his ideals of the perfect Chojin idea were a flawed, it makes sense that Justice Man would decide to step back and go his own way. It feels kinda cheap just to have him give up, but it also feels earned enough you can't be too mad about it. It's a great way to wrap the tower before the final 2 matches. What's that? There's 4 more matches? How? Brocken Man Jr. fights Psycho Man, the Chojin that discovered magnet power, taught Neptune King, destroyed Planet Man, and survived a fight with Buffalo Man where he was effectively toying with him. And Brocken Man has a really strong grip, you guys. Like, super strong. It's so impressive. Everyone was like, oh man, he could crush so many rocks in his hands. Honestly, just don't even bring Brocken Man Jr. into the ring. Let him just have his win against Crush Man and let that be good enough. But alas, it isn't. Psycho Man is flipping and slamming him like a pancake when a ray of light tells him to stop BMing and let the poor guy lose with some dignity. That logical light is none other than Silverman, descending from the heavens, ready to throw down against his old friend Psycho Man. While Goldman took all their power to form his body, he gave Silver enough for just one fight, and he chose to use it to stop Psycho Man, and so the Master of Defense squares off against the Master of Magnets. Magnets! How do they work? Only use it one time this video, don't worry. We find out that Silverman, the god of the Justice Chojin, defense, and rock and roll, isn't the pacifist everyone thought he was, and he actually has quite a few finishers in his repertoire. This is also when we find out why Silverman and Goldman defected and why they think they're cursed with immortality. They realize their ideals can be corrupted, and if you stand in the way of any progress, nothing can ever surpass you. You stop being a watcher and start becoming a hurdle. Psycho Man tries to tell the Justice Chojin they're puppets, and Silver shoots that idea down real quick, telling them he believed they could be better than he ever could be, and the secret is in the muscle spark, and the only person to master it is his descendant, Suguru Kiniku. Silverman never actually figured out how to use the muscle spark without totally annihilating his opponent, and that's just what he does to Psycho Man after literally breaking and wrapping lightning around himself. He shows off his version of the perfect muscle spark, and Nemesis is enchanted by the raw power on display, seeing a new weapon that he could use. Silverman wins and passes the dumbbells to his brother, begging the Justice Chojin to not get in the way of their actions, to let them die. With that, the dumbbells are inserted and we learn the truth. Psycho Man had reprogrammed the table to only erase him if all the dumbbells were gathered instead of all of the origins, so he thwarted their entire plan with that same smile on his face as he fades away for a second time. It's then decided that the last two matches would be the next day to give all the Chojin time to rest and prepare. Kinnikuman is provided a hibernation pod, and when he panics about the fight, he runs away and is stopped by Peekaboo and the recently freed Neptune Man, who tells him he needs to fight tomorrow and he's probably just as strong as Nemesis, if not stronger. And Suguru doesn't believe him because he has imposter syndrome. He thinks he's only ever won because of flukes or by accident, which is understandably upsetting to someone like Neptune Man, who had his pride as a wrestler challenged by being taken out by Kinnikuman and Terry Man, and was very obviously not a fluke. Kinnikuman has trained and fought tooth and nail to win his way to the top. Even Akuma Shogun admits that he lost fair and square against Kinnikuman, waving away Buffalo Man's interference. He dislikes Suguru, but he respects what he represents. He beat Super Phoenix, Zebra, and Neptune King. We've seen him clench victories time and time again, but in his eyes, it's all dumb luck. That's honestly a great hurdle for him to have to overcome, to admit that he's gotten stronger. He still sees himself as the useless pig Chojin in a shack when he fought his way to his own throne. He got the gods to approve of him. It's not an element of the series I would have ever expected to see from the original run. This is a much more nuanced and interesting take than I ever would have given Kinnikuman credit for. Suguru has to recognize his own value. He has to recognize the victories he's earned. And this isn't a victory lap before the final day. He wanted to run away. He didn't know if he had what it takes to beat Nemesis, and he still doesn't. But Nemesis is a perfect foil for him. And so, Suguru understands what he has to do, and even though he's scared, he gets in the pod and gets ready for the final day. Remember, all of this takes place over just 72 hours. It's kind of wild. 2 more fights to the end of the arc, and there's a reason Buffalo Man and Ganmon would be my top 3rd pick. These 2 fights are utterly incredible. I don't want to get too in-depth in either of them because I imagine they need to be seen to be properly appreciated. And I am so excited to see them animated. Please, support the official release where you can. Watch the anime on Netflix. Do not let this be the only way you experience the perfect Chojin origin arc. There's so much more here. Up first is Kinnikuman versus Nemesis, and good lord, this is a way better final fight for Suguru than even Super Phoenix was. Nemesis not only represents a threat that beat down both Robin Mask and Ramen Man, but also the cruel dark side to the Kinniku clan that Suguru now rules. He's not some false challenger to the throne. He's of Suguru's bloodline and mastered the muscle spark. He has no interest in the throne, just beating Kinnikuman. That's perfect. it's so personal in the best way without them ever really making him that much eviler. He's not going after Babimba. He's not going after any innocents. He wants to put Kinnikuman down and remind people why the throne is corrupt. And while Kinnikuman was initially scared, he goes into the fight revved up and ready to push Nemesis to the limit. Nemesis doesn't have a second or really anyone in his corner, but Strong the Man, Budo, whatever, commends him for his strength, saying that if anything were to happen to him, he'd want Nemesis to lead the perfect Chojin, as he's the perfect encapsulation of their ideals. That's brilliant, and there's just this almost bittersweetness to the last fights. It's a conflict of morals, a corruption of once noble ideas. There's no pieces of meat or friendship boxes. This is just settling an eons old score. As Kinnikuman and Nemesis clash, Peekaboo and Neptune Man come to cheer Nemesis on, and he starts to appreciate the importance of having a team. Yet his hunger for more power becomes his downfall. When he sets up to finish Suguru, he goes for Silverman's Perfect Annihilation Muscle Spark instead of the Muscle Spark he mastered, and destroys his body in the process. He thought his body could handle it, and it collapses in on itself instead. And it's not a cop-out for Suguru either. It makes sense why Nemesis would do that, why he'd feel the need to take that extra step. It's so perfectly set up and honestly just brilliant. It showcases that Nemesis isn't perfect, that he is flawed to an extent. He doesn't go for the perfect route, and that's amazing. Nemesis is always looking to prove himself, to show that he is perfect, and in showing that he is perfect, finally sees his flaws. And with that, Kinnikuman finishes Nemesis with a perfect muscle spark, makes sure he doesn't take his life, and all the fight card has been cleared except for the headliner match. Millennia ago, Goldman and the Man fought atop Ayers Mountain, which would become Ayers Rock, and would spar day in and day out. Through their fighting, they whittled down the mighty crag into the famous nub it is today. This is where Akuma Shogun and Strong the Budo would have their final fight. A clash of two old friends that just stopped seeing eye to eye. Goldman just wanted to challenge the absolute authority, and Strong was afraid of giving up the reins after he gambled so much already and saving some Chojin from annihilation to make them into his perfect order. The fight isn't some big, incredible vindication or anything. Think about it. What has Strong the Budo really done? He took out the mountain. That's about it. Akuma Shogun hasn't done anything inherently evil either. They've just been on their own separate missions, and this is where their fates have converged, with Akuma Shogun determined to bring the man into the future and see the potential of life and Chojin once more. The two square off in a battle of the hardness where Akuma Shogun is being a noodle boy with diamond hands, and the man is just this menacing mauve monster. I will say this, though, I kinda wish the man took off the Budo getup when he fought Akuma Shogun. It just feels like he's fighting him in a fat suit. It looks odd. Didn't really want to see the nutty professor get a Hell's Guillotine. As the two duke it out on Ayers Rock, we actually see Akuma Shogun cracked, bleeding, and thrown on the back foot. For once, Goldman is the challenger. He's going up against the man that granted him immortality and the power he wields. He's fighting to save his friend from his friend. And in that moment, as these two ancient beings awaken to their friendship, Akuma Shogun unlocks his own burning inner strength. He's able to overpower the man and finally ends this massive conflict. With the man defeated, he sets some ground rules going forward. No more immortality, no more Chojin Graveyard, and the man will be forced to stay in hell and never get out again. And with that, Nemesis and the perfect Chojin leave. The treaty is tentative at best, yet the day feels won. There's no mountaintop trophy, there is no greater satisfaction outside of the victory earned through hard fights and teamwork. It's simple, but it absolutely works. Not every fight is going to have a reward at the end of it. And as the fight finally ends on Earth, we have to look to the cosmos. Deep beyond the stars, Satan is not happy Akuma Shogun acted of his own accord. He's annoyed he doesn't have proper envoys anymore, and so he summons the other Omega Man and his champions to go and remind the universe of his encroaching darkness. Satan's back, baby. To be continued. Ugh. That wasn't even a final arc of anything. That's how the series came back, with an absolute banger. Look at this nonsense. It's a lot, but it's a lot of perfection. Get it? Get it? No, like again, huge shout out to the teams that have worked to translate this series, and please, please, please take this knowledge and know that you're in for an absolute ride with the new Netflix anime. Tell your friends, rivals, family, whatever, and get the good Chojin word out there. This series deserves its time in the sun, and I can only hope this helps. That being said, anything you think I was right on, wrong on? What was your favorite fight? Least favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And if you liked what you saw, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Tell ya friends, we're out here. The Perfect Chojin origin arc is still in my eyes the best arc of 2011. Though 2011 is really just 3 arcs at this point, which is wild in its own right. 3 arcs in 13 years. Perfect Origin is just solid through and through and even challenges Modern Jump series. Controversial, I'm sure, but I'd absolutely say that the Perfect Chojin origin arc as a whole is better than the entirety of Demon Slayer's story. I know it's popular and I'm definitely not saying it's bad. Perfect Origin is just better. It's seasoned professionals coming back to an idea they've wanted to breathe new life into, and they absolutely did. It's great fights that don't just prey on nostalgia, but tell a more mature story for an older audience. They know their audience can handle these deeper themes and don't need a definitive big bad unless it's, you know, Satan, who looks straight up like a Mon from Devilman. TLDR, it's good. Watch it. Anyway, that's going to do it for us here in the lecture hall. Want to be part of the fun and get early access to content and keep videos coming out? Then join our Patreon or membership program and you even get put on this fancy list. Woo! Part 3 of this video going over the wild ride that is Ultimate Muscle will be coming, but I have a new project I need to get through that takes us all the way to the year 3000. So until then, stay strong, keep fighting that good fight. I know there's something good coming, I can feel it, and I believe in you no matter what. If you woke up, that's a win in my book. Keep going. You got this. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time when I have to think of a new rhyme. Goodbye, everybody.